dialogue between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and Israel. Saudi Arabia is a very important country in the region and is, of course, the basin for Islam. And I believe that this must be moved forward. I say it openly. I supported it, and I still support it
but do you support the conditions
and I think that there is an opportunity now to move forward. Regarding the nitty-gritty or the conditions, I would ignore some of all the statements. I think these things need to be discussed in closed rooms. I assume the Oval Office will be involved in it as well. I think that everybody realizes that this is a step that should radiate to the entire universe. Israel is here in this region forever, and that's why we should aim for it, apart also from the fact that Saudi Arabia itself is a key to regional stability. For example, I can envision that our region will supply energy, solar energy, to Europe, Asia, and Africa. We need for that a combination of all the states. There is an infrastructure available. There was a vision which was laid out by the previous outgoing administration of President Biden, connecting Israel all the way to India, meaning Europe to Southeast Asia and America to Australia through the Eastern Hemisphere. These are big things, and we have to push for all of that.
In that vision, what is your vision for the 7 million Palestinians who live in Israel, in Gaza, and the West Bank? They neither have full political rights in Israel, they are not Israeli citizens, nor do they have full political rights in their own country. What is to happen to them?
So we should strive for peace, and they deserve to have peace just like us. But it requires them to disseminate and understand that terror is out of the question under any circumstances. And unfortunately, even now, in these very hours, we are fighting and combating terror in the Jenin area, which is under the Palestinian Authority's rule. I believe that there will be a moment after the enormous pain and after the rules are set, which mean no more terror, that there will be a moment where we'll have to have a real peace with our Palestinian neighbors. And I dream of that day, but it will take time.
Does that include a Palestinian state?
It includes many ideas, because the idea of the two-state solution is something which, on record, I supported in the past many times. But I would say that I had a wake-up call following October 7th, in the sense that I want to hear my neighbors say how much they object, regret, condemn, and do not accept in any way the terrible tragedy of the terror attack of October 7th and the fact that terror cannot be the tool to get there. I mean, innocent civilians were butchered, raped, abducted, burned to death. People who are the biggest peace activists, we had to go to DNA labs all over the world to identify their bodies. Hostages are still in the dungeons of Gaza. This doesn't work this way. If we are dignified human beings, it is unacceptable under any norm.
Let me ask you about something that happened in Israel. The head of the IDF, very respected Lieutenant General, resigned because he felt it was important to take personal responsibility for the failure of October 7th. Should that be the extent of it, or is there also political responsibility, for example, in creating a division between the Palestinian Authority and Gaza, in funding Hamas indirectly through the Qataris as a way of keeping the Palestinian leadership divided? Were those also failures of Israeli strategy for which somebody should be held accountable?
So first, let's explain to the public here that in the last hour, the Chief of Staff, General Halevi, submitted a letter announcing that he will be retiring in March. And I made a statement commending him. He is an outstanding hero of Israel. who took responsibility both originally and in his letter for the failure of the IDF to block and prevent the horrific attack of October 7th. This, of course, does not derogate from the real responsibility which lies on Hamas, of course. And I also made a statement that there is a national need to inquire in depth. My wife and I, we've paid bereavement calls and visits and meetings with over 1,000 bereaving Israeli families of all faiths, religions, styles of life, and political views. Incredible nation we have, and I'm very, very proud. But there's enormous pain and agony, and many of these families say to us, we want to submit our position. We know from our kid on October 7th what happened at 8 a.m. in the morning. All soldiers who fought, all wounded, all ordinary Israelis, they are seeking, and that is why I repeated my call for a National Inquiry Commission. The National Inquiry Committee is by Israeli law an instance, a tribunal that can investigate this in depth. And then, of course, you'll have the political ramifications you're alluding to. Not only that, we are a democracy. Everything is debated out in the open. We are a very vibrant, successful democracy. With all its challenges and problems, it is impressive to see how the debate goes on in hundreds of websites, in demonstrations in the streets, in public debates and so forth and so on, and TV channels and in the parliament. And I'm sure that will be at the end discussed and deliberated when election comes.
You are a democracy, but there are, as you know, many friends of Israel. I'm thinking of people like Richard Haas in the United States, who say, if Israel continues on its current path, though, with 7 million Palestinians who do not have political voice, it will not be able to be, in the long run, a Jewish democratic state. That there is a tension.
We understand that there must be a political move forward on the Palestinian front. But one has to understand the state of mind of Israelis. To come after such a horror and a national trauma, surrounded from 7 different frontiers, and expect Israelis to say, hey guys, we are just, we are withdrawing, we're pulling out from that settlement or otherwise, that's not realistic at all. It doesn't make sense to Israelis. They need to see something that makes sense in terms of their personal security and safety. There were many efforts in the past. There will probably be new efforts now. That is why I think the trajectory of moving forward with Saudi Arabia, with Arab countries, which of course puts the Palestinian issue as a focal point in the discussions, is something which makes more sense to me.
At the World Economic Forum this week, there is also one of the representatives of Iran here, Javad Zarif, the vice president, former foreign minister, the man who negotiated the nuclear deal. Do you have any message for him? Is there any possibility of a dialogue?
I'm not sure he is directly involved anymore in the real decision-making process through the Iranian leadership, although he holds title. The JCPOA was one venue that collapsed. And the real issue is that in the interim, we've seen that parallel to developing more and more capabilities which threaten world stability, I mean, that nation goes on and on and on and on, spending billions on account of its citizens just to create havoc, terror, pain, undermine. It's unbelievable. It's a nation with great history, a great culture, and they've deviated into a rogue state, which calls the only nation state in the world that calls for the annihilation of another nation state. So that is why we're very suspicious, meaning we believe that there has to be clear message set by world leadership to the Iranians, no more. And we try to explain it. Look, our homes were attacked by Iranians. We were under sirens in shelters. Of course, we took serious steps back against them. But it has to be clear that this is unacceptable in the new era that was declared yesterday. Let's hope for that.
Finally, taking into account everything you've said, I want to take us back to the fundamental question of Israel's security situation, which to me looks like it is massively improved. Syria, Assad is gone, Iran is
Major
weakened.
change.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that all leave you more optimistic, or because of all the, the real issues, are you more wary than optimistic?
No, I'm actually definitely more optimistic. And I think, our people, our nation, has shown immense resilience. People left their homes, people older than you and me even, all the way up to the age of 96, volunteered and went to the army. Many of them are still serving hundreds and hundreds of days, leaving everything behind, simply to make sure that it doesn't happen again. This is the message we got. That is why, think about the enormous pain that was involved in getting to the hostage deal, which every Israeli wants to see them home, but is worried. We don't want this to return. We want to change the reality to the better. We did that in many ways. And of course, with the support of allies and the United States of America. But at the end, it was our people, our heroes, and many paid with their lives. So I am absolutely optimistic. I'm always optimistic about the eternity of Israel. But when it comes to the details, as you can see, I want to be lucid, mainstream, cautious. And I think we can do both. Strive to continue to change, not only by way of military operations, but also by way of diplomacy, but also never lose sight of the risks.
President Herzog,
thank you very much.
Great pleasure.
As always. That was terrific.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You're terrific.
You too.